Welcome, friends. Today I'm featuring cards from the June 2020 My Monthly Hero Arts kit. So sorry for the delay. If you saw my unboxing, you know that I received the kit late and went ahead and did the videos for July and August, and I'm coming back with this kit. The theme of this kit is Northern Lights, which are very beautiful. So let's have some fun. Card number one is an A2 card, and I used the large background stamp that came in the kit and stamped it on 65-pound Nina white cardstock with VersaFine Onyx black ink. I used clear embossing powder to set that. Off camera, I also heat embossed the eagle on black cardstock using Versamark. Back to my background panel using the embossed resist technique, I blended distress oxides, peacock feathers, ripe persimmon, squeezed lemonade, twisted citron, and salty ocean. The blending is so easy to do with my blending brushes. I got these blending brushes from Amazon and they come in assorted colors, so it makes it easy to color code with my inks. After I'm done ink blending, I use a paper towel to just rub off any excess ink that may be sitting on the surface of the embossed areas. Sprayed my panel with shimmer spray and set it aside to dry. You can't see it on camera, but the sparkle and the shine, it's really gorgeous. I cut a large oval frame using Gina Marie dies, and I cut that from Nina white cardstock and framed my panel. And to finish off the panel, I added some Nouveau Jewel drops in orange marmalade. Off camera, I also heat embossed my sentiment using Versamark ink and Brutus Monroe alabaster white embossing powder onto black cardstock and die cut a banner using Gina Marie Designs dies. I also die cut images from the kit, the mountains and the trees. I placed my eagle on the right side of the panel to finish off this card. Card number two I made off camera. I started with my 110-pound white cardstock base. I used pattern paper from my stash that has red and navy blue anchors on it. I trimmed it down to 3¼ by 5½. I also trimmed down a navy piece of cardstock to 1 inch and placed the 1 inch navy strip on the left-hand side of the panel or the left-hand side of the card base, and then affixed my pattern paper to the other side. And then I die cut a large white oval and a medium blue oval. I die cut the lighthouse out of red cardstock using the Hero Arts Unicorn White Pigment ink and the My Favorite Things Sun Rays stencil. I blended rays of light onto my navy oval. I stamped my sentiment onto my navy oval using Versamark ink and applied Brutus Monroe alabaster white embossing powder and heat embossed it. Next, I affixed my navy oval to my white oval and my white oval to my panel. I added my red lighthouse and then applied Nouveau glitter drops in ruby slippers. I added 3 of the Nouveau glitter drops and then mounted my card to a 110-pound white card base. Card number 3 is an A2 card. I also made this card off camera. I started with a 65-pound Nina White cardstock for my panel. I ink blended Distress Oxide Stormy Skies and Tumbled Glass to form my sky and my water. I used antique linen distress ink for the bottom to form my sand for my beach. Then I took the sand embossing powder from Hero Arts. We received that in a past kit. And Versamark ink, applied that and heat set the sand. And then around the edges, I used Hero Arts white puff embossing powder to form a froth at the water's edge. I used a sentiment from the August kit, stamped it in VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and heat embossed it with clear embossing powder. I added birds from a prior kit and the large boat image. I placed that in the water, and then I used some translucent Nouveau glitter drops in White Blizzard. I used an MFT Dynamics frame die to cut 2 pieces or 2 frames out of craft cardstock. I affixed the 2 craft frames together to add dimension. Used that to frame my panel and then mounted my panel to a 110-pound white card base. I love the effects of the sand and white puff embossing powders. This is my first time using them, and I will certainly be using them again. That finishes off this card. Card number 4 is an A2 card. I used the black watercolor paper from the kit to make this card. I also used a Ranger lettered stamp set for my sentiment. I used the large Northern Lights background stamp from the kit. I placed the stamp in my MISTI. I trimmed the watercolor paper down to 4¼ by 5½. I placed it in my MISTI using temporary tape. First, I laid my paper on my background stamp, centered and positioned it where I wanted it, and then closed the back side of the MISTI on top of the paper. Using Versamark ink, I stamped the background 3 times to get a good impression. I used Brutus Monroe Alabaster White embossing powder to heat emboss the background. I can tell you that I probably would not heat emboss on the watercolor paper again, or at least this watercolor paper, because it's very porous and it did not hold the embossing, or I should say the powder, very well. But I went on to use it just to kind of see whether it would take the Nouveau shimmer powders well. I lightly sprinkled on Nouveau shimmer powders, Blue Blitz, Green Parade, Cherry Bomb, and Catherine wheel, and then spritz the panel with water. It takes on a very textured look. So after spritzing with water once and drying the panel, I felt like it needed more color because most of the color kind of absorbed or faded out. So I added more color, more water, and again used a paper towel to clear off the excess water. Panel aside to dry. Die cut mountains from the kit and back them with a gray cardstock. I cut them out of black cardstock. I also stamped and die cut the whale's spout using alabaster white embossing powder. I stamped that on black cardstock. I stamped my sentiment on white cardstock. Trimmed my panel down to 4 inches by 5¼ inches and mounted it onto a 110-pound black card base. I added translucent star sequin that came in the kit. I added those to give it a little sparkle and shine. So all in all, I'm pleased with the card, although the panel, inking of the panel was a little different. Card number 5 is an A2 card. I started with a 65-pound Nina white cardstock panel. I stamped the large background stamp with Versamark and Brutus Monroe alabaster white embossing powder for an embossed resist technique. After heat embossing, I blended Distress Oxide inks, ripe persimmon, wild honey, twisted citron, peacock feathers, and dusty concord on my panel. I used the Hero Arts Hello Stamp and Cut set for the sentiment. I die cut the word hello 3 times out of a 110-pound cardstock and affixed those together for texture. I used the MFT Dynamics stitched sentiment dies to die cut my sentiment. You brighten my day. I trimmed my panel to 4 inches by 5¼ and I used Hero Hues Kiwi cardstock as the background and mounted my panel on that, and then mounted everything on 110-pound white cardstock. I stamped my narwhal head and tail onto black cardstock and used alabaster white embossing powder to emboss those pieces, and then die cut them out and place them on my card. That's it for this card. Now let's take a quick look at all of the cards I made using this kit. Let me know in the comments if you've seen the Northern Lights before, up close and personal. My understanding is that you can see them in various parts of the world and that they're just beautiful. From the pictures I've seen, they are amazing. Also, let me know in the comments which card you liked best. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'll be back soon with part 2 of cards from this kit. Good day, friends.